Welcome to the Hey Docs podcast with your host, Jill Allen. Today, we're diving into the world of insurance with Tina Byrne, creator of the iMaxX system powered by OrthoFi. We'll talk about why insurance can be such a challenge in ortho practices, how iMaxX helps practices recover lost revenue, and what steps you can take to improve your billing processes. If you're looking to make insurance less of a headache and more of an asset, this episode is for you. Let's get started. This episode was brought to you by Gray Finch. Hey docs, if you want to have a great business, the right practice management software is essential. But some can be slow, outdated, and lacking good support. That's why I recommend Gray Finch to all orthodontists. It's the fastest, most reliable, and most secure platform to grow your business and improve your efficiency. It's completely web-based, so you can run your entire practice anywhere and from any device with no servers, no downloads, or hidden fees. They even have the most helpful and responsive support team around. Right now, Gray Finch is giving a $500 discount to our listeners. Visit grayfinch.com/Jill Allen to learn more and see why it's one of the fastest growing providers in America. Tina, I am so excited to have you on Hey Docs. I have been looking forward to doing this podcast with you. So thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me, Jill. Good to see you.
Yes, nice to see you too. One of the ways I like to start off Hey Docs is to have my guests, in the event that somebody doesn't know who you are or doesn't know about your career in orthodontics, I'd love it if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and the things that you have done and are doing in our industry.
Okay. Like yourself, I'm very organic in terms of my ortho. I spent about 20 years within the practice, moving from the clinic into the business area, different areas of that. My first consulting experience was with a big consulting firm that was all areas of dentistry. And after a couple of years, I needed to get back to ortho. I just needed to come back. Yeah. So almost 26 years ago, I began consulting on my own, strictly ortho, pedo ortho, a little bit like that. And management in terms of systems-based things within the office. Within a period of time, I realized there was a big void with insurance in our industry. And so that became, oh gosh, man, I would say 10 years ago, that became a big part of what I began consulting with. And over a period of time, I developed a way of automating insurance in a program, whereas if an office was in network, I would basically take all their in-network information, coordinate it with their treatment plans, their fees, everything, and took away the thought process for the TC. So in other words, instead of them going to binders that they kept with their fee schedules and back and forth and everything else, my program had all of that at their fingertips. And then it just kept rolling. Insurance is so dynamic in terms of things that change. So basically it ended up being, my program did the thinking for them in terms of codes that they could use within their treatment plans. And that took off for me. A few years ago, I sat down with OrthoBank and we looked at the program, and OrthoBank had an interest in developing it. And we went there. It was several years in terms of the process of development. I didn't realize everything that was involved in developing a software program. It's huge. And I am extremely empathetic to practice management programs in terms of all the users who want all these things that they can't do because, wow, it's a big endeavor to tweak software programs. So anyway, OrthoFi bought OrthoBank a few years ago. And within time, as they transitioned, they stepped into my insurance program. And this week, it actually went live after 3 months of beta. It actually went live this week. I think I got a text that they were with 49 offices this week. And I believe,
Congratulations.
thank you. I believe within the next number of weeks, it will be over 400 offices that the OrthoFi will be using my insurance program.
Yeah. Oh, that's number one. Just congratulations.
Thank
How
you.
awesome is that? And I know from one business owner to another, number one, we love what we do. And when you can really pour into something that you know is going to make an impact on the industry, and I'll tell you, you and I can agree on this. Insurance, love it or hate it, we got to deal with it. And
Absolutely.
if there's any way possible for our docs that are in network to make it better, just really maximize what they can get back from on their billing per se. I think it's great. That's really one of the things I wanted to talk about is IMAX and that system. So can you tell us a little bit about it and what we need to know there?
Sure, absolutely. IMAX stands for Insurance Maximization Expert. And we came up with that title when we were still in development with OrthoBank. And that's exactly what it does. It resides within OrthoFi's software. And if I were to explain it, the best way to explain it is that OrthoFi was able to develop it where it's actually intuitive. And in the background of insurance, you have this huge web of carriers and plans and types of plans and different things, which makes nothing straightforward in insurance. And that's part of the reason that development has taken so long. And we wanted to get it right. And I will say that OrthoFi has been phenomenal in terms of we are not putting a substandard product out there or a product that puts any office at risk.
Yeah.
There was a lot of research into carriers and carrier rules and different things like
Mhm.
that. And they nailed it. They
That's
absolutely nailed it. I'm so excited, not yes, for myself. I've been beaten down over the years with it, but for OrthoFi, because
yeah.
it is a tremendous asset to their product.
Yeah. And as you and I can both agree, insurance is, gosh, it is so hard. And when I work with younger practices and to bill insurance and all the nuances that come along with each individual carrier that's out there. And you can use this code, but you can't use this code, or we'll accept this thing, but we won't accept this thing. And so to think that, again, there's a program out there that can help think for us. I love this. And I know that this is going to be such an instrumental tool for so many practices that do choose to be in network with orthodontic insurances.
Yeah, absolutely. Being in network obviously is always something a practice really doesn't want to do. But the truth of the matter is, over 90% of dental insurance is a PPO plan. And PPOs are extremely aggressive in guiding their subscribers to in network doctors nowadays. And we're at the mercy.
Yeah.
And when it comes to IMAX, the way my mindset has always been that if you go back far enough in time with orthodontics, you know that there were separate charges for diagnostic records, even
Yep.
exams at one point. There were offices that strategically broke out a retention charge to keep the charge they quote down. There was what they call unbundling at one time. In other words, we didn't go to one core code, one code to submit our insurance. And my mindset was, let's step back in time. I refer to it as a procedural journey.
Mm.
Orthodontics is a period of 18 to 24 months. And there are numerous procedures we do within that treatment plan. There are numerous tools that doctors have loved to put in their practice, like lasers and other things, where now they do them internally. And it's an advantage and a benefit to be able to have that as part of orthodontic treatment. And they usually don't charge extra. But if you're in networks, you have to look at those procedures so that you minimize the discounts that you take with it.
Yes.
And that's IMAX.
I love that. And I think, what has always been very scary, I think, for a lot of doctors and is I don't want to do it wrong. And knowing when can I use a code, when can I not use a code. So one of the things that I really wanted to talk about was When we look at billing and talk about it with insurance, I think that a lot of times there is potentially a lot of money that is left on the table when it comes to billing insurance and billing it properly and using the right codes. And a lot of times offices are like, oh, but that's a dental code. That's not an ortho code. And can I use it? And how do I pass that on to my patient? And, but they only have a lifetime max of X amount. How does this affect me? So I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about that and maybe even some data on what docs might need to know or need to be thinking about
Sure.
when we are thinking about billing outside of our single code that we're
Sure.
used to
Sure.
using.
Absolutely. The other thing I probably need to point out, Jill, and I'm sure you've seen this, is not only are we talking about codes, we're also talking about within the practice mathematical errors that have
Oh,
been made.
oh,
That's huge. Benefits are on the table. You've got a balance on the ledger because we didn't realize that calculating benefits for in network was totally
mm,
different. And so it comes down to the big picture of insurance. But I will tell you that, yes, the codes are huge in terms of what you're able to pull out. And like I mentioned before, you've got to think about this journey of treatment that you're taking. The insurance company certainly has their way of being more profitable as a business. And we really don't have to be victimized by that. We have to think through it. I thoroughly believe that being in network nowadays, you have to take a very strategic approach to it. The other thing is, again, as a consultant and looking at metrics, nobody knows these metrics when it comes to in network or adjustments or anything else. So you've got to be a little more granular when it comes to the way you approach insurance. It can't just be bottom line insurance receipts or insurance patients. So the codes are huge. I would say if we look at the very basic thing is the diagnostic part of it,
mhm,
okay? And yes, there may be a step over into dental benefits. And what I hear most of the time, as I'm sure you do, we don't want to bill those because we don't want dentists angry at us in terms of we stepped over the line and we've taken away their codes. But insurance is going to do what they're going to do. We have no control over that. And my experience has been that only a panoramic x-ray is usually what will come out of dental.
yeah,
If that frequency has been used, then they'll probably take it out of the ortho benefit. But I have always erred on the side of caution when it comes to benefits and where they come from. And a patient comes to you with the expectation of their orthodontic benefit, and that's what you have to focus on. And yes, wow, we could go off in all different directions. But so I try to keep it as black and white as possible. Okay. Even though it's not, I
yeah,
try to keep it that way. We try to work the same way with every patient who comes through our office.
mm,
We'll look at diagnostic, and that's where an office should really start. They should start with, okay, what do we do from a diagnostic standpoint? Usually there are four basic procedures that are done. Models have come into the digital age, and
mhm,
now there are codes and allowances for scans as well as printing 3D models nowadays. That came up in 2025, codes for that. Offices are totally unaware of that in terms of what they do. The other question I get is the standpoint of how we communicate treatment to an office. Very often we say your initial visit is complimentary, or there's
mhm,
no charge for your initial visit. The very simple way of changing that is your evaluation is complimentary. Okay. And I tell my offices that any procedure that we do with regards to x-rays or photographs or anything like that's all part of treatment when you move forward. So that I've never had an issue with that. Never,
mhm,
ever. Never had a patient say, why are you billing my insurance for this when you said my first visit was complimentary? Okay. Change your language to your evaluation is complimentary. Okay.
yeah,
And I always say, doctor is able to look at these diagnostic procedures and give you much more of an accurate diagnosis in terms of what you need, which is why we do that at the start at your first
mhm,
visit. Okay.
mhm,
So It's tweaking in an ortho office. It's never about changing one thing. Everything is so interwoven in terms
Yep.
of what you do. And it certainly with insurance as well. But changing that language is probably the big thing. And I can say that diagnostic is it's a go to. Okay. And for the most part, when you look at allowances, now you've just reduced your discount probably an average of $250 to $400. Okay.
Mhm.
You've just recouped that. And that's huge. That's huge for a practice. So that's your starting point in terms of that. Other codes, I don't go there unless I'm able to work with an office because, again, you don't want to guide an office into an area that puts them at risk. Okay. And you certainly want to know the rules and everything. So,
Yep.
when IMAX started, it was basically my consulting. I would
Mm.
get into an office, whether they called me for insurance or whether they didn't. And for many years now, that's why offices call me.
Yep.
But you have to look at the big picture of it. You have to look at how they treat. You have to look at the sequence with which
Mhm.
procedures take place. You have to look at each plan individually. And very often you have to say to a doctor, hey, you can't just document diagnostic records. Okay. You have to say that we did a panoramic film, we did a ceph, we did photos, okay, intraoral and extraoral. So the details of things have to be in place for you to be able to forward these things to an insurance carrier for reimbursement.
Yeah.
You have to be able to say, hey, if an insurance carrier comes back and asks me any questions, I have documentation, very
Yep.
clear documentation, and that isn't always the case.
Yeah. And one of the things that I think, and probably a lot of listeners are like, oh my gosh, I'm going to start billing all this out. And I'm going to just say to my startups, especially, this is like insurance billing 2.0. first,
Exactly.
first you got to learn how to bill it
Right.
and really understand what you're doing there. And I don't necessarily advocate unless you are using a program like IMAX. I don't advocate for you just jumping in. If you're a brand new doc and you've got a brand new team member and you already don't understand how to bill until you really get that under your belt, you've got plenty of time to make more money and to really understand this. So it's we don't want to jump in too quickly unless you've got the tools behind you or the support behind you for this, because this really is, I love what you said, we're finessing, not you didn't use the word finesse. We're really looking at this, we're critiquing this and saying, okay, I'm moving a little lever here and a little lever here in order to get more out of basically what we're having to write off, because we know just in being in network we've got to write down to a certain dollar amount, and what we're trying to do is just recoup that back up, but we have to have an understanding of it, which is why I love what you've been able to do here, Tina, is because you are allowing us to have that 2.0 but be safe in what we are doing. And it isn't just somebody told me in a Facebook group that I should be doing this, so therefore I'm going to do it. And now all of a sudden you might be the one that does happen to get that call from the insurance company, and don't think that they don't happen, because they do.
Yes, they absolutely do. Or the patient, Jill,
Yeah.
which is even probably worse because to be able to give a patient an understanding of how things work. Like I said, you look at things. You also have to change the language in your contract a little bit,
Mm.
okay? In terms of understanding non-covered services and different things. A lot of offices are upcharging. And when Invisalign came about, they didn't want those large lab fees and taking a huge discount. So they upcharged. Clearly there are carriers that will not allow
Yep.
upcharges, okay? If you upcharge and you're contracted with the carrier, you've got to put it in writing with the patient that they understand that there were out of pocket expenses as
Yep.
a result of things not being covered. And that never happens.
Yeah.
Never.
Yep.
Maybe the offices I don't get into, but for me, I don't see it.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. And that's something we work a lot. Same thing with our clients, to be like, okay, if we're going to do this, you have to have it in writing. You have to have it signed in addition to your contract, because, like you said, what we don't want to, we just don't want to, you don't want to be
Yeah.
the office that gets that call and then doesn't have the the backing to be like, yes, I've crossed my T's and dotted my I's, and you're welcome to look. I'm consistent with the way I do things. And that's really what it comes down to, is consistency. Are you treating all patients the same? Are you doing it consistent? Are you tracking what you're doing? It can't be like, this week we were really good about charting. Last week, not so much.
Absolutely. And add to that the shortage of staff members nowadays.
Yes.
Outsourcing has become huge for many practices because of staff members, or because it can be done better if you outsource it. For OrthoFi clients, that's huge for this to be a part of the OrthoFi services.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So I'm curious, as you guys have been doing this and developing this, and as you look forward, how are you guys going to continue to keep up to date with the changes with insurance billing? Kind of what are the tools that you have in play for that?
That's probably a better question for OrthoFi, but I will say this. I will say this. I always say to my insurance coordinators, complacency is not an option when you're accountable for insurance in an office. And I don't know if you'll agree with me, but maybe because I'm sensitive to the fact that insurance has been such a big part of what I've done for so many years, I feel like there's not a lot of information out there.
No.
The AO doesn't go there, that you don't find continuing education for that, because it's a gray area. You have to look at it individually. You can't just put it out there.
Yep.
Again, which is the genesis of IMAX. He had to go there. I guess I'm crazy enough to be that person, but
Why not you?
why not me? Exactly. Why not me? Why not me? Yeah, it's huge to think of. In terms of staying on top of it, I will say this. I have the utmost respect for OrthoFi. They want to do things with integrity. They don't want to put their clients at risk. Hence, this has taken a while. They want to do it right. They don't want to be in error when it comes to things. And OrthoFi has some team members that are tremendous in terms of their knowledge. Paula McGinty is my go-to in terms of, if I have a question, she's dealt with thousands of insurance situations, thousands of claims a day, hundreds and hundreds of offices with regards to credentialing and different things like that. They are a tremendous resource for insurance.
Yeah.
There'll be a day when I step aside. It's good to know that there are people in our industry who have a good understanding for it, and it can move forward.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that to speak to what you just said, it has been such a gray area, and it is not. I think everybody wants that black and white answer. It's Delta, so therefore Delta of California is the same of Delta of Colorado, is the same of Delta of Minnesota or whatever, and how these different plans, and it just is not that way. And again, one of the things I am so excited about this program is there is finally at least a tool that, even though the insurances aren't on the same page, we at least have a tool that's bringing everything and giving us within our own industry that unified approach. And somebody else has done the sleuthing to figure out, okay, are we safe in what we are doing? Am I staying within the boundaries that are going to keep myself and my practice safe as I am trying to? It's not only, sometimes it's getting the insurance to pay more, but knowing when can I roll money back onto the patient and have them be responsible for it, because it doesn't always mean that the insurance is going to pay. It's just giving you the latitude to say, hey, you don't have to write down as much as we originally told you have to, because we're going to give you this allowance back or whatnot. And I think if we're going to stay in network, and I agree with you, so many of our docs, we need to be there. Sometimes it's a matter of, we want to meet the needs of the community, and just it requires us to, we may have a practice that's in a heavier insurance area, and they just need to be a part of it. They'd love to be out of it, but they can't. So how do we maximize?
And the choice of being in network or out of network, it's a big question.
Yeah.
You referred to like online and everything. There's a lot of like armchair quarterbacks online when it comes to all kinds of things within our industry. Some of them are great. Some of them are not so great in terms of what they put out there. Many of them are familiar with their situations,
Exactly.
and what they're in network with. But it's harder and harder to stay out of network. Not only were we talking about discounted fees, but now you're talking about carriers who are reducing a patient's benefit if they go out of network. And I'm sure you've seen that.
Oh, yeah.
Delta Dental is they're the company that has rolled out now. How do you I have an office that I work with that we lose almost every Delta Dental patient that we see for an exam because they can go up the street and get twice the benefit that they get in our office.
Yeah.
And that's tough, which is
Yeah.
why you're up against the wall sometimes in terms
Mhm.
of what you do. You have to know how it affects you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. So I'm curious if you have any advice for our listeners that are maybe just getting started with insurances in their practice. Maybe any suggestions on what they should be thinking about or how they train their teams? Any sage advice there for them?
Yeah, that's a good question in terms of startup practices. Over the years, I've had offices who've called me, and the question was, I just purchased a practice. Should I, they weren't in network. Should I go in network? Should I not go in network? I'm a bottom line person.
And now, a word from the sponsors who make this podcast possible. Hey, docs. On this podcast, I talk about a lot of different ways you can set your practice apart. But here's one that might surprise you. Maybe you haven't thought about it before, but the equipment you use can make a big difference, not just for the patient experience, but for you and your team too. That's why I want to let you know about a new line of orthodontic equipment from ADEC. I visited their headquarters in Oregon earlier this year to take a sneak peek for myself, and I have to say, I was impressed. ADEC has manufactured award-winning dental equipment for 60 plus years, and they're bringing that same level of excellence to ortho. From comfortable, compact patient chairs to a versatile workstation and delivery to ergonomic dental stools, ADEC orthodontic equipment is designed for a smooth and easy workflow. Day after day, patient after patient, see the difference it can make for your practice. Click the link in our show notes to learn more about ADEC Orthodontic Solutions. Hey docs, let's talk about Smile Suite, because it's not just another scheduling system. It's a game changer in the world of new patient management. And as a proud Smile Suite partner, I've witnessed the incredible impact it has on practices of all sizes. Smile Suite means your new patient calls and web leads are expertly handled 7 days a week, even during nights and weekends. And they offer top-notch customizable presentation software and seamless post-consultation follow-up. It's like having a secret weapon for your practice's success. Curious? Dive into the revolution at GetSmileSuite.com. And don't forget to mention Hey Docs to unlock some extra goodies. Elevate your practice with Smile Suite, because every smile deserves a suite of excellence.
There are a lot of factors that come into growing as an orthodontic practice and ways you can bring patients in the door. You have to know the external factors of what's going to affect you. Obviously, your competitors, your employers in the area, different things like that. But I would say do due diligent when it comes to you've got to look at more than just a fee schedule. You don't always settle for what they give you with a fee schedule. Granted, Delta Dental and MetLife are the big guns in terms of the insurance industry. You're not going to get around that. But hey, if I unbundle my codes, I'm not looking at a $4,700 allowance anymore for MetLife. Now I'm in my mid fives,
Yep.
depending on things. So there are things that you can do. The other thing I would say is the web that is now the insurance industry. There are now third-party administrators or networks where you don't have to go in network with Cigna directly. You can go to Zealous or you can go to Dentamax and you can have better allowances within those. So it's a process in terms of looking into knee-jerk reactions in terms of going in network or getting out of network are the worst thing offices can do. Credentialing is a lot of work. in terms of follow-up and just desk work. Never anything that I've been able to do for offices. The other thing is that, I don't know about you, but I found out that carriers don't want to talk to consultants.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nope.
Yeah. Nope, not at all. But there are some really good companies out there in terms of who know the industry, will do credentialing for you. Again, many times you can't look at the fee that you're going to pay for this because it's going to come back to you tenfold within a very short period of time. And if I want to throw names out there, Five Lakes is the company that I always recommend that offices use. I've seen higher allowances, better strategic placement for network and fee schedules with Five Lakes than I have in other offices that I go into. So that's what I would say to your startups, Jill. Do your homework. Don't be impulsive in terms of what you do, and understand the choices that you have.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, when we're working with startups, we definitely have a whole process on making those decisions. And to exactly what you just said, it is definitely not a black or white. Yes, we're in. No, we're not in. There's a lot of different things that you have to look at when you are, especially doing a startup. But I love it that you also talked about acquisitions, because I think that can be almost a harder one when you've got a doc that's coming in and you've got a senior doc that's maybe been grandfathered into some of these premier plans. And they're like, oh, great, these fees are awesome. Guess what? They're not going to be your fees.
No.
And you don't get to take them over. And there's just a lot of work that you don't necessarily realize that is going to have to happen, and you probably have got referral patterns that are used to you being in network with these insurance companies. And I just love what you said. You cannot just black or white or react to something. Oh, I'm just going to get out of all the insurances. Maybe that makes sense, but again, with an acquisition, probably better be looking at the historical patterns for where referrals coming from and how many patients are actually starting with those insurances, and should you really be thinking about being a part of them.
And again, before you had very little choice, okay, in terms of if I went in network or if I didn't go in network, and I looked at my fee allowances. But again, offices were missing the opportunity of minimizing those reductions with the codes that they've never used. They've never put them on a claim form to increase their allowance. And I have to tell you, I've been doing this for a number of years, and I always say mindset is the first thing, because I can't, if I had $1 for every time I got this from a team member or someone, where we talked about maximizing, and they say, but that means the patient pays more. And I work for the doctor. Okay. And the other thing I will say is, you have to understand insurance is a business. It's not a benefit for people. It's a business.
Yeah.
And what you can't explain to people is that you're really not going to get much more out of insurance than what you pay in for premiums in terms of what they pay for you.
Yeah.
But you have to understand that, yes, it does mean that a patient will pick up what you're not discounting anymore, but it's a business. I'm sure that you've seen offices that say, hey, it's crazy. I'm getting patients who come to me with a $5,000 benefit for orthodontics. And their mindset is they're going to come in here and pay very little. But the truth of the matter is, insurance has put together these plans that are very enticing to subscribers. And what you don't see is the fine print. Okay. And you don't see the exclusions and the limitations and the UCRs that come into play. I get a lot of questions from offices where they have irate patients. We're always on the front line, and it's, quote, always our fault many times in the eyes of the patient when insurance doesn't do something. And I always advise my offices, when you get in these systems where you're up against the wall in terms of what we didn't find at verification, and by the way, that's a whole nother can of worms with insurance. And insurance is regulated by both federal and state regulations. Okay. Federal regulations covers every insurance carrier out there. And the big thing about federal regulation is full disclosure. Okay. You have got to be informed of all the things that make up that plan. And very often that's where I advise my insurance carriers when they have a patient. It's go back to HR, go back to your plan. Federal regulation states that they must disclose all this for you. And was it disclosed? It might have been. People, again, look at that $5,000 dollar benefit. They don't look further than that. But at least it redirects the attention
Yeah,
off of
takes the
us
heat.
in terms
Yeah.
of doing something right.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's great advice. And it is true. We can do our best, and I don't know how much IMAX, and maybe you can speak to this, helps with that verification, or if it truly is more just on the once we've got it and we're processing the claims and whatnot. But it's so tough because you get those fax backs. If we're gonna and we got nothing coming back. That we've got the little of the little, and now you're like, oh, do I really have to call and get all of these questions answered? Yeah, you do, because these plans are not black and white. And like you just said, you may have a plan that looks amazing and you're just going to assume that it pays like everything else. And it absolutely does not, and has all these little fine print things that make it so that the insurance doesn't want to pay any more than they need to or want to.
No, they're a business. They're a business. They're out for profit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And sad that we've got to be the bearers of bad news very often when it comes to that. But
Yeah.
if I can jump over to verification,
Yeah.
in general, verification being done in the office is more than 4 questions nowadays. Carriers are also not wanting one-to-one interaction with offices anymore. They want you to go to their portals. They want you to go to their toolkit. They want you to get everything that you can off of line. But very often,
They'll
the
have
small
to make
stuff
that phone
isn't there.
call.
You still have to
Yep.
look at it. Yeah, verification has become big. In terms of IMAX and verification, not built into IMAX, okay? But obviously OrthoFi and OrthoFi services is a front to end solution office. And when I began working with OrthoFi, like anything, you have to stay on top of the insurance industry.
Yeah.
And again, it speaks to the integrity of the company in terms of what fell through the cracks maybe with them with insurance, and they reimburse their clients. They're committed to doing it. And I will say this, that IMAX was a huge undertaking for them, but I think OrthoFi inevitably saw the benefit to offices by having IMAX
Yep.
and are committed to that. And who knows where it goes from there. But I'm happy that an office now has that choice out there in terms of, hey, we don't have to take this all on ourselves. We can have the assistance of a company and a product and things like that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
and if I can just clarify something, IMAX began as a tool I created for my clients when I worked with them. Okay. So you can imagine how little there is out there in terms of, yes, this has been going on for me for 10 to 15 years, but it was a huge undertaking for me to put together a program that was out of Excel. We stepped away from Excel, and the little bit of a computer nerd that I am, people think I'm dangerous when I go into an office because I know just enough that it's like they don't want me touching certain things. But over time, I taught myself how to write code a little bit and different things like that. And it was a huge undertaking for an office. And there was no way it was sustainable for me to offer the industry. Thank the Lord that OrthoFi committed to bringing this to the industry because it's huge.
Yeah, it really is. And I think it's exactly what we needed. And it really does close that loop for us where OrthoFi is able to handle, if we're just talking about the billing component of it, and I'm just going to talk about the insurance side of it, from the verification to the billing to confirming that we are billing to the maximum ability that we can, and helping doctors in that way. I just think it just really finishes that loop for us, where if a doctor is trusting OrthoFi in helping that be a solution for their practice, they know that nothing all the way through is going to fall through the cracks there. And so again, I'm just super excited that this came out of your brainchild, and congratulations that OrthoFi has been able to pick this up for you. You should be very proud, but this is exactly what our industry needed. And from one consultant to another, thank you for doing this for us.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. We all have our niche in terms of what we're capable of or what we enjoy doing.
Yeah.
And for lack of a better thing, I'm someone who, I don't like something to win. Like, I don't like there to be a factor in an office that I can't address. And it's been a bit of a passion and an obsession for me over the years in terms of bringing it to my offices correctly.
Yeah.
And the other thing I might say is, there are still a lot of insurance coordinators out there in offices that are dealing with all of this. And continuing education is
Mhm.
so needed in
Yep.
terms of putting it out there, even though you can't say in exact terms how things will happen in your office. You have to create that awareness,
Yeah.
and you have to give team members the skills and the knowledge for it. There's still a lot to be desired when it comes to insurance in our industry.
Yep. Yep. For sure. For sure. It is not a one and done or close the chapter
No.
on that book. It is constantly evolving for sure. Tina, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, learn more about IMAX, more about Orthofy, what's going to be the best way that they can do that?
Sure. Obviously, OrthoFi's website. Again, iMax sits within the OrthoFi product. So OrthoFi is offering this to their OrthoFi clients. Okay. So when we talk iMax, that's what it is. As far as myself, consulting.com is a place where you can push a contact to me, or Tina Byrne, Byrne at burn-consulting.com. And yeah, I'm one person. It's a huge undertaking for me when I go to an office, but I can tell you, I've never sat down with a doctor, looked at their situation with insurance, and they didn't want to do it. Okay. So the awareness and the ongoing education for it. And yeah, as an industry, the other thing that I hope is that other consultants start to learn more about things and can be more beneficial to offices. And I get it. I get it. There's a lot on their plate. I always say a lot of balls in the air when you go into an ortho practice and you consult or you do anything. But that's the other thing. I am open to training and just sitting down as a group in terms of consultants, and sharing my experiences, my knowledge. I have a mantra: none of us is as smart as all of us.
So
Okay.
true. So
Exactly. Exactly.
true.
And
Yeah.
I wouldn't be bold enough to ever go there. It's a learning experience. And I say that to my staff members. What you've experienced is important for me
Yeah.
to know. But
Yeah.
yeah, I want to share.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And again, thank you for bringing this. It's exactly what our industry needed. And I'm so glad that Orthofy was able to pick this up and run with it. Orthobank and then Orthofy. And again,
Exactly.
I think it's just really closed the loop, especially with their product line as far as what they're doing, and just really pushing to really help their clients, if you're working with them, to just have a complete suite of services that is really going to, they don't have to keep plugging people in. They've got it figured out for them.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
Tina, the way I like to finish up Hey Docs, this has been great. And I hate that we have to stop talking, because I know you and I joked it's a 2 hour, 2 hour podcast, but I know we could keep talking, because
Go on and
insurance,
on.
we both like a lot and are pretty passionate about. But I like to finish up with a speed round. So are you ready for a couple speed round questions?
All right, let's see. Jill, you and I know each other, but I don't know if you know me well enough to know that you don't want me to be impulsive sometimes.
Hey, I love that. I love that. You just, whatever comes to mind, you say.
Okay.
What is one daily habit or ritual that you think helps you stay productive or balanced?
Have you seen my posts on Facebook, Jill? I just posted something the other day about being unstoppable, and my phone corrected it to say unstable.
I
And
saw
hey,
that.
that's fair. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm a feet first person. They're going to take me out of this industry feet first, because I don't know that I have balance in my life a lot of times. I think when the fatigue gets so much, like, I step away from it. I think right now, and you're going to laugh about this, but I step from one side of my work to the other side of my work. And the other side of my work is Ortho Team University, which is an online platform that we're going to be offering training and information for team members. And that I've taken that on with Sue Hanen of 360. And we are such lone rangers in our industry. Consultants, you're within your bubble. Yes, we're competitors, but it's not like we're open books to each other. And since working with Sue, we've developed a friendship and an open book. And I can say something. She's my stress relief right now. We find our way of going away for a few days, and we do a little bit of work, a little bit of play. But yeah, Jill, I don't know. If you know anybody who can shrink my head in terms of balance, I'm happy for that.
I think it's tough. I always say it's seasons. I look for the elusive balance, but it's like a unicorn. I'm never going to find it.
Absolutely. Yeah,
All right.
absolutely.
Here's another one. If you could add one unconventional perk to every workspace, what do you think that would be?
A massage chair.
Ooh, I love that. Don't we all need a massage chair?
Exactly.
And then
Is that the answer? Is that what you were looking for? Something very unconventional?
that is exactly. Actually, you know what's funny is you are the second person that has said that. So I think it's a must. We must have a
Absolutely.
massage chair. And then to finish us up, what's one business idea you've seen recently that you wish you had thought of?
A business idea that I wish I'd have thought of. Wow. There are so many. You know,
Like putting you on the spot.
there are so many. Maybe this hasn't been around for forever when it comes to things, but COVID changed our lives in so many ways. It didn't only change our lives, it changed business in terms of the way we've done business. Remote work and virtual assistants and things like that, I think have become invaluable. Maybe the virtual end of it, but in the same respect, as I've gotten in the senior side of my career, I don't want to manage people in terms of like employees and different things like that. I have some rock stars that I'm happy to send things to, but I would say it would have been fun to be in on the virtual end of transitioning things with practices and everything. And I think it's a challenge for those that do it.
Yeah, for sure. I love it. Tina, this has been an absolute joy
Always.
having you. Thank you. Thank you so much for being on. And I look forward to us talking again.
Yeah. See you soon.
All right. Thank you. See ya.
Thanks, Jill. Have a good weekend.